Every analyst on this platform is asking the wrong question. The question dominating every briefing, every naval commentary, every headline for 30 days straight is, when does Hormuz open? When does the US military force it open? When does Iran's blockade collapse under the weight of American carrier aviation and sustained strike operations? That is the wrong question. The right question is simpler and more uncomfortable. Why is Iran making $2 million per ship while the most powerful navy on Earth watches from outside the corridor? Operation Epic Fury has destroyed or rendered combat ineffective more than 50 Iranian warships. US and Israeli strikes have degraded roughly 300 IRGC missile launchers. Iran's conventional surface fleet no longer functions as a coherent fighting force. Two carrier strike groups hold the outer approaches. Brent crude has climbed past $100 a barrel. 2,000 vessels sit anchored outside the strait, engines cold, crews waiting. And Iran is running a toll booth. Not metaphorically, operationally. The IRGC has installed a formal vetting scheme confirmed by Lloyd's List Intelligence on March 26, requiring ship operators to submit cargo declarations, crew manifests, and destination ports to IRGC-approved intermediaries. Vessels that satisfy the criteria receive a clearance code. Vessels with a clearance code receive an IRGC escort through Iranian territorial waters. Transit fee: $2 million per crossing, settled in Chinese yuan. At least 26 vessels have cleared the system in 2 weeks. Iran's parliament is now moving to codify the arrangement into permanent law. The strait is not closed, it is curated. And the curator is the country we have been bombing for 30 days. This is the variable that changes every downstream equation. Subscribe to Decision Military if you understand that clearance codes matter more than strike sortie counts. To understand why, you need the geometry. The Strait of Hormuz measures 21 nautical miles at its narrowest. Commercial shipping uses the traffic separation scheme. Two 2-mile lanes separated by a 2-mile buffer. 6 nautical miles of usable corridor. Iran's territorial waters extend 12 nautical miles from its coastline. The northern shipping lane runs through Iranian territorial waters. A fully laden, very large crude carrier, drawing 72 feet below the waterline, does not choose which wall it passes closest to. Hull physics and channel bathymetry push the heaviest vessels toward the northern lane. The northern lane has always belonged to Iran. It belonged to Iran before February 28. It belongs to Iran now. The IRGC is administering the corridor from the inside, from the wall it has always legally owned. No cruise missile can revoke that. Geography is not a target set. Now look at who is being allowed through. On March 26, Iranian Foreign Minister IRGC announced permitted passage for vessels flagged to China, Russia, India, Iraq, and Pakistan. Malaysia and Thailand subsequently secured access through direct diplomatic engagement. Pakistan alone negotiated passage for 20 flagged tankers at 2 ships daily. The Karachi, operated by Pakistan National Shipping Corporation, crossed on March 16, the first non-Iranian tanker to transit since the war began. Trump reposted Pakistan's announcement on Truth Social within hours of the deal being confirmed. This is not humanitarian generosity. It is a geopolitical sorting algorithm. Every flag granted passage represents a nation Iran has chosen to reward. China is Iran's largest strategic partner. Russia is a co-sanctioned patron with aligned interests in weakening dollar-denominated energy markets. India derives 80% of its crude from Gulf producers' dependency. Iran can leverage. Pakistan is the active diplomatic intermediary currently delivering the U.S. 5-point peace framework to Tehran, receiving Iran's 5-point counteroffer, and hosting quadrilateral diplomatic summits in Islamabad. Iran is not operating a port. It is operating a diplomatic instrument that happens to look like a shipping lane. The instrument grants access to partners, withholds it from adversaries, and forces the world to observe the difference. That selective access creates a structural problem no additional strike package solves. The blockade was framed internationally as Iranian aggression against global commerce, demanding unified response. But when China, India, Pakistan, and Russia are transiting under IRGC clearance codes while Western-flagged shipping sits anchored outside. The crisis applies selectively. Iran decides which economies suffer. Iran decides which alliances get rewarded. That is not a blockade in any strategic sense. That is the exercise of sovereign authority over a corridor. And Iran has placed formal international recognition of that authority at the center of its 5 conditions for ending the war. The toll booth is not a funding mechanism. It is a proof of concept. Each cleared vessel advances the legal argument that Iran administers the strait, not merely blocks it. Each yuan-denominated payment creates a transaction record demonstrating Iran operates a functioning international transit system with fees, vetting, escorts, and documented precedent. Iran's parliament is writing that system into national law in real time. The legal architecture of Iranian sovereignty over the northern lane is being constructed one clearance code at a time. The revenue calculus has also inverted in ways the original campaign did not anticipate. At $2 million per crossing, 26 confirmed transits represent $52 million in documented toll revenue in 2 weeks. That sum does not restore Iranian export income, but it funds IRGC operational costs, denominates Iranian receipts in Chinese yuan outside the sanctioned dollar system, and it does so from a legal basis that parliamentary legislation is actively reinforcing. The war designed to economically strangle Iran has handed it a new revenue model with better political leverage than crude exports. Now look at what the United States cannot do about it. Intercepting an IRGC escort of a Pakistani-flagged tanker inside Iranian territorial waters means firing on Iranian forces within Iran's legally recognized jurisdiction over a transit both Pakistan and Iran have formally authorized, while Pakistan is simultaneously serving as the diplomatic channel through which the U.S. 5-point peace plan is being delivered to Tehran. There is no operational concept that makes that interdiction available. The geometry forecloses it. This is where 30 days of military logic collides with its own ceiling. The U.S. Navy demonstrated overwhelming strike capacity. It destroyed the IRGC surface fleet. It suppressed the missile architecture. It achieved everything the military dimension of the operation was designed to achieve. None of that closes the toll booth, because the toll booth's foundation is not military capacity. It is territorial jurisdiction, a country administering its own waters, charging fees, issuing clearances, providing escorts. No admiral has a weapons system designed to end that. The decisive contest in the Strait of Hormuz is now definitional, not kinetic. The United States insists the strait is international waters, freely navigable under UNCLOS, in which no nation may unilaterally impose transit fees. Iran insists it exercises sovereign administrative authority over its territorial portion of the corridor. The U.S. 5-point framework demands Iran recognize free navigation. Iran's 5-point counteroffer demands the world recognize Iran's authority over the strait. Those two positions are separated by a distance carrier strike groups cannot close. And every ship that transits under IRGC clearance narrows that gap in Iran's favor. Iran lost 50 warships. It lost its supreme leader. It sustained over 1,700 killed. And it is still running the toll booth because the naval battle was never the mechanism of control over the strait. The mechanism is geographic authority backed by territorial law. That authority was never damaged by Operation Epic Fury because it was never a military asset. It is a fact of geography, and geography does not care about carrier strike groups. If this changes how you see Hormuz, if you now understand that the clearance codes and the yuan transfers and the parliamentary legislation are the actual contest, not the strike sortie count, subscribe to Decision Military. That is the channel that runs the equation underneath the equation. The strait is not closed. It is curated. The curation charges $2 million. The receipts prove sovereignty. And there is no weapons system in the American inventory designed to close a toll booth built into another country's own territorial waters. That is not a military problem. That is geometry.